Hello. So today I have the honor of speaking with my friend and business buddy, Grace. She is a certified health coach and personal trainer specializing in helping military women and spouses create portable, sustainable fitness routines that fit their ever-changing lifestyle. Through her flagship program, PCS Proof Fitness, and her podcast, the PCS Proof Podcast. That's a mouthful. She empowers women to prioritize their health and to build strength and to thrive in the unique challenges of military life. So let's get into it. Hey, Grace, thank you so much for being with me today to do this thing. So,
Hi, Heather. Thank you so much for having me.
of course. So, let's start with the basics. Let everybody know who you are and whatever feels important to you, personal, professional, I don't care. What are the special things about Grace?
Hmm. My name's Grace Tomazo. I am first and foremost a pet mom. I have a dog and two cats, and I'm also a Navy active duty spouse. My husband is active duty Navy. He's been in for over 20 years now, so that's our life. Right now, we're living in Japan and just loving our time here. So my first and foremost is my family, and then I'm also a health and fitness coach for active duty military spouses and active duty women. So that is my career and my passion and the thing that I love spending my time doing. Outside of that, I really love playing softball. I'm very passionate about women's sports and women's athletics and helping set women up for success through athletics. Those are kind of the core things about Grace.
I love it. And you and I relate on so many of those things. Anybody who's been here with me
Mhm.
for a minute knows that I'm an animal lover through and through. So you're speaking to my heart when you talk about your animals. And I love that
My
I'm learning
kids.
so much from you. Yes. Because I come from an army background. So I was army, my
Mm.
husband was army, and I have worked with a couple of Navy folks over the years, but very few. And so I have learned just in the couple of conversations that you and I have had outside of this, I learned a whole bunch of really cool stuff. And then later on that night, I was like, Taurus to my husband. I'm like, did you know such and such about the Navy? He's like, no. And he was 20 years in the army and did the joint thing. So anyways, it's cool to learn things about the branches that you just didn't know before. So,
I I really agree with you on that. I learned a little bit from you as well, and then yeah, those interactions between different service branches. We were living on a joint air base on a previous duty station in Japan. So that was primarily Air Force and then a small, like three commands of Navy. And it was the same thing. I learned a lot about the Air Force in those couple of years that we were there.
that's so cool. I love that. And it makes it so much easier. I mean, we're all humans. We figure out how to relate anyways. And
Mm,
especially amongst the military, we're gonna find something to connect on. It's how you integrate as a military
absolutely.
affiliated person. But it's always cool to have that so that you can kind of speak the same language at least a little bit of the time. So
Yeah, we understand, even if it's not the exact same acronyms, we have similar acronyms and we can figure
yeah,
it
but
out
you work it
how
out.
to communicate. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have some really incredible topics today that I'm super pumped to dive into because it's not stuff that I talk about, but it's stuff that I live. It's things that are so important to the whole person being able to thrive. So even though speak to military wives, and even though I typically tend to gear that towards business related stuff, I always emphasize that the whole person needs to be cared for. The whole person needs to be attended to and balanced and whatever. So you are going to bring the topic of health, wellness, fitness, and we're going to dive into the details of how that looks in a military lifestyle when everything's not just, day in and day out the same, when things are
Yes,
constantly shifting and unknown. So
absolutely.
let's get into the conversation. So your with your experience or in your experience, I guess is what I'm trying to say. What are some of the biggest hurdles that military, so you can speak to, military folks as well, but if you're able to, military wives, what are some of the biggest hurdles that they experience with having some kind of a fitness regimen?
This is super important because while there are a lot of similarities between civilian life and military life, it's not like we're our own island. There are crossovers, right? But there are some very unique challenges that are just not addressed by traditional fitness and health spaces, and they need unique solutions in order to address those challenges. So I think that one of the biggest challenges is that comparison. We are constantly seeing our civilian family, friends, coworkers, and they're on this fitness journey, and they don't seem to have the same stressors, the same schedule changes, these deployment schedules that they have to contend with. But we're seeing them succeed and wondering, why am I not able to do the same thing?
Yeah.
And so I think that is one of the biggest challenges for not to do them. And I work with both, and I see the same challenges creep in as, my so-and-so was able to achieve their weight loss goal or train for that marathon or whatever it was, and they were able to do it. Why is it so hard for me? And they put themselves down, and it is discouraging for them. So I think that is the number one thing, is that comparison between civilian and active duty or just military life. So it requires us to build a community within the military, so we have a better perspective of what's going on, and have a little bit more empathy and understanding for, like, my spouse is gone for the next 6 months. I'm taking care of the entire household, the kids, after school activities on my own. This is not the time for me to be taking on huge goals. There might be other goals that we take on instead of that, but comparing ourselves to the outside world, the civilian world, is going to be a really big challenge for this population.
Yeah.
One of the other big challenges that go ahead.
Oh, you go ahead, please.
I'll take a breath.
No, you're good. I want to hear what you have to say.
The other big challenges is lack of time, and more importantly, I think it's lack of energy. So we can say lack of time because I think that is the thing that comes to mind when we're thinking about why is it so hard for me to start or sustain a fitness routine. But my experience is that it's more of a lack of energy or a limitation in energy. There's just a static level of inherent stress in military life. Mm-hmm. It's just like, you sign on the dotted line or you sign that marriage license, and you're just handed this little bit of inherent stress that comes along with military life. I know you probably understand that because you have a unique perspective on both sides, active duty and military spouse. And it can feel really overwhelming to feel like I already have so much on my plate, and now you're asking me to do more in order to fulfill the goals that I want to set out. How am I going to fit in more? And so I think that is another big discouragement, and a limitation, a challenge for people in this lifestyle. So we need to find ways that are going to help add energy, think of changing our mindset, to think about, how is this going to benefit my life? How is this going to add to my life? How is this going to make it easier for me to handle all the challenges that come along with military life? I think that's a really big, important one, is how can I change the channel to help me think of this as it's going to help me to accomplish everything and tackle all the challenges. I have a lot more, but those are the main challenges that I see and I hear from the women that I work with.
Yeah, I can relate to those so much. I would say the comparison thing, that's like human. Like, that's not just workout. We see that.
You're
in business.
Absolutely right.
We see that in our personal lives. We see that in every aspect of our life. We want to compare ourselves. We don't even necessarily want to, per se. We just have a tendency to compare ourselves to the people around us. And just like you said, what that does is that compares a picture that does not equate to the same picture that you're living. So you're comparing like apples to oranges, or as my brother and I like to say, because apples and oranges kind of are both round and they seem a little too similar. We like to say grapes and bananas because they're totally different, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So stopping the comparison for sure. I will say, you said something and I forget exactly what it was, but it had me thinking about my time. So my husband's retired now, but the last couple of duty stations we had, I had I made it an I made it my what's the word I'm trying to look for? It's not coming to me right now. I would go to military installation gyms instead of just finding the
Oh,
closest
yeah.
one to me. I would go to military installations to use the gyms. And what I loved about that is being able to find a community of spouses who were in the same situation. So like when my spouse was deployed, they could relate to that. And so it brings in a whole other thing other than we're getting fit together, which doesn't even need anything added to it because that all by itself is a massive benefit, of course, right? Physically and mentally.
Mm,
But
yes.
just having them that were kind of going through the same thing or had been through the same thing or were going to go through the same thing, and having that community built in to what I was doing with my exercise as well was massive. I don't even remember what that relates to what you said, but something triggered that thought. So
Well, I'm so glad that you brought that up. Can we talk about that for a second?
can
Because
we?
I have,
Yes.
yeah, I have
Yeah,
two
let's do it.
thoughts on that. Because one, community is so important. You nailed that. We would have talked about that later, but I'm so glad you brought it up from the beginning because community is important.
Mhm.
We need a community. Like, I was just finishing reading a book by Jennifer McDonald. It's called um, You're Not Alone. She's a long since military spouse,
Okay.
but she just writes so well and it's so relatable. And I think the big piece that I just finished reading about was how we have a tendency to want to just kind of go it alone,
Hmm.
like take it on all on our own. Like I can handle it, it's fine. But at a certain point, you realize, a certain point in your military spouse career, you realize I cannot handle this alone. I'm not happy handling it on my own. That community piece is so important to just lift your spirits and have a little time to just like be human. I'm really struggling. This is really hard. I think that we all need a little bit of a vent, and sometimes venting to our families, they just don't understand everything that we're going through. So having that community where you just go, not only are you getting fit, but the community just having some time to just be you, be human, and all your struggles, all your challenges, and just have that space is so important.
Yeah.
And then my second thought is that I'm so glad that you feel confident enough to walk into a military gym because I know that that is also very intimidating for a lot of women to walk in and see all these seemingly fit people, or a lot of them are active duty and they seem like they all know what they're doing. And so that can feel really intimidating if I'm just getting started and not knowing exactly what to do. I used to be that girl. I used to be that girl that would walk in and not really know how to use the
Oh, me too.
weights.
Yes, me too.
Yeah, yeah. So you just go to like the treadmill or the elliptical because those seem safe and I can figure out how to push the buttons and do that. But then beyond that, I wouldn't know what to do. And so I would just leave. And so I want to hold space for all those women who that just right there, walking into a gym or on installation gym feels like a step too far. So
Yeah.
that is another challenge for military spouses today.
100%. But there's of course the mindset stuff to work your way through what the mindset hurdle is. But then there's little things you can do while you're building up to that point, right? Like if you go certain times of day, 9 a.m. or 8 o'clock, most of them are getting out of there, getting ready to shower, going into the office. And so you're going to see more spouses or a different community inside the gym at that time. You can
So
always
true.
walk in with your headphones, be in your music, right? You don't have to be in the environment, checking out what everybody else is doing, comparing yourself to worried about who's watching you. Because I promise next to nobody's watching you, even though we all think that everybody is scrutinizing what we
Absolutely.
are doing. Nobody's watching you because they want to know what they're doing. They're looking in the mirror, watching their own form. They're watching their numbers and their weights. And so it's
Yeah.
those are some things that you can bring in with you if you are worried about like, oh my gosh, these guys can lift hundreds of pounds. I can only lift 10.
And well, two things is one,
Yeah.
I think even if you have to start at home, just start at home and just build that confidence. Like, okay, I know what I'm doing. I can figure this out. I know these basic movements. And then I think that helps you feel like, okay, I'm prepared enough to walk in the doors to the gym. And also, I have a couple coaching clients who were very much in that boat where they felt like everyone was watching them and judging them. And a couple times now she's come back and told me that people will walk up to her and compliment her on her form, like looking at her almost as like a role model, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I see what she's doing. I want to do that. So also people might be looking at you, but more often than not, they're looking at you because they're where you were at when you first walked in the gym.
They're not judging you. They're trying to learn from you.
You're inspiring them.
Yeah, I love that perspective. Absolutely inspiring them. I love that. Thank you for talking about that. That's a really important part.
Thanks for letting us go on that little tangent, because I think that was really important what you brought up. That's a big one. Just walking into the gym, feeling comfortable, and then finding your community. So important.
Yeah. Tangents are my middle name, so that won't be the last.
No.
Okay. So we talked about some of the some of the biggest hurdles of getting into a regular routine when your routine is not regular. So what else would you say to well, let me ask it this way. Somebody who hasn't really gotten into the routine yet and wants to, what are some of the best tips that you could give them?
Great question. I think that the biggest thing to get started is to not feel like you need to go 0 to 100. A lot of times we think that when we're starting, especially like right now we're filming at the beginning of January. Whenever this comes out, this is still pertinent to you, but I'm only talking about it because we're in this time frame where everyone is thinking about their New Year's resolutions. Yeah. And oftentimes people will try and add on everything at once. And it tends to set them up for failure.
Yeah.
For lack of a better term.
Failure's not a dirty word here. We can say that.
Yeah, and well, failure is a good thing. You're absolutely right. Failure is a good thing, but it's I want people to be able to learn from that. It's important that you learn from failure, and oftentimes we miss that piece. We just think it's me. I failed because I can't handle all of this. So what I preach to my coaching clients is to always think about what you want to do and then dial back a little bit and start there. Doesn't mean that we're ignoring that you want to, let's say you wanted to work out 5 days a week. Doesn't mean that we're ignoring that. We're just setting you up for success. So whatever that number is or whatever that thing is, I want you to take that number and then dial it back a little bit. So instead of 5 days a week, I'm going to commit to 2 days a week. And then when that feels really comfortable, then I can add on that third day. Or if I get a third day in this week, that's my extra credit workout. So instead of framing it as I told myself I was going to do 5 and I only did 3, that feels a lot different than I said I was going to do 2 and I ended up getting 3. Yeah. And that feels a little bit different and a little bit more motivating. So that would be a great place to start at, is just dial back whatever you said you wanted to commit to, dial it back a little bit, get comfortable with that, and then add on more when you're ready. Yeah. So that's number 1. And then 2 is a lot of times people will try and go really heavy or fast. They think I have to be lifting super heavy. I have to be sweating like crazy. I have to be super sore. That's their goal. And when they don't achieve that, they feel like they didn't do everything that they're supposed to do. And the science does not support that. So I'm just putting it out there. Science supports small progressive. We call it progressive overload. That's a fitness term. So progressive overload, you always want to be able to do just a little bit more, not a ton more, a little bit more. And studies show that you don't have to be lifting your maximum weights every time. You actually get the same benefit by lifting a little bit lighter than your max weight. So don't be afraid to go a little bit lighter. Keep yourself safe. You're going to be able to prevent injury and enjoy the process a little bit more. You're going to be able to live your life without feeling like you're so sore you can't even sit down or stand up or walk up the stairs. So I think that's another piece of it, is we need to make this something that doesn't feel like it's interrupting your daily life. It needs to add to, support to do in your daily life.
Yeah, those are really solid points. Thank you for sharing those. That reminds me of, going back to habits, like when you're building a new habit or, goal
Mm.
setting for that matters, when you're wanting to start something new, it is so anything, but particularly because we're talking about health and fitness here. It is so important to start where you are, give yourself permission to start where you are and to celebrate when you do the thing. When you don't beat yourself up, you go, okay, like I'm human, that happened. I'm not going to make an excuse. I'm going to do better next time. But, maybe life got in the way, or I learned from not doing it this time. It doesn't feel good. So next time I'm going to do the thing and then celebrating
Mm.
it.
Yeah, celebrating is a huge piece. And I know you and I kind of know that. I'm so glad you brought it up because it's one of those little things that sometimes we forget to talk about. It doesn't seem like it's as
Yeah.
important. But that is a trick to make your brain solidify whatever you want to do. So whatever you're paying attention to, your brain is going to gear itself towards, right?
Yes.
So if you're celebrating a win, your brain is going to log that as that's something that I want to do again. So
Yeah.
be careful what you're celebrating. And celebrating isn't always celebrating, it's paying attention to. What are you paying
Yeah.
attention to?
Yes. That's such so there's a funny thing here. I didn't do well in science most of my life. I always said, now as a coach, I've talked
You're
myself
a
out of
writer.
things.
You're probably more linguist and
Oh, I
you're a great
love the
writer.
science. This is what I'm getting at. I didn't do well
Mm.
in science growing up, so I figured I'm not good at it. These days, I love the science, more of like the mindset stuff, the neuroscience kind of things. But I'm like, it makes it feel so much more powerful when you're like, oh, so that has been studied. There is evidence there. There's science there.
It's not just woo woo.
No, which is fine. I love the woo woo too, but I like a
I do
combo.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we like bordering on delusion sometimes can be helpful, but it's helpful
Sometimes
when
it's
it's
what
also
you
backed
need.
by science.
Yes. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
One of the strategies that I use with my coaching clients is I give them a program calendar every single month, and we know that there's flexibility in that. Everyone knows that this is just the structure for our month, and then we can adjust it to their life. But one of the big things I tell them to do is to not give an X or a sad face for anything that they miss.
Yeah.
And we have a tendency, I know a lot of people like to do that, is okay, so I missed a workout X,
Yeah, like I was
um,
bad,
and
right?
mm-hmm, and I will specifically tell them we don't do that here. Like we will only mark on the sheet of paper when we do something. So not only are we only putting physical action behind things that we did positively, but also it gives them tangible feedback. Like I could see it, it's visual, it's tangible because I wrote on it. That feedback of things I did do. So it's our way of training us to for wins instead of focusing on things that we missed.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I might borrow that for my own coaching in different
I
areas.
mean, we do that with our kids, right? We give them gold stars. They go and put the gold star up. So why don't we do it for ourselves? It works for them. Why not do it for ourselves?
Yeah, wholeheartedly agree. Okay,
Mm.
so similarly related topic. Something that I know that you talk about is how being able to do your workouts, your fitness, managing your health during times that are difficult, like transitions, deployments, we call PCS, but change of duty station kind of things. But from the perspective
Mm.
of how that builds resilience, can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. This is a really, really big piece because I think you and I both kind of talk about how to build resilient people, how to build resilient businesses. For me, I'm also looking at how to build a resilient fitness program to support everything else. So thank you for bringing this up. Super
Yeah.
important. Um, we talked about stress and we talked about just the inherent stress that comes along with military life.
Yeah.
Stress can do a lot of really negative things in our bodies. We talk about stress like it's just this thing, but stress is a biological function. It has hormones behind it that affect every single part of our body, every single system within our body, including our brains. So it's really important to not just think about stress as like, oh, I just need to go and like, there's so many different methods. Every method is good, but we need to think of it not just for our brain, but also all of the physical physical parts of our body that are affected by stress. So taking care of the mind, meditation, journaling. I love meditation. I meditate every single morning. I journal every morning. That helps me to get recentered. But if I'm not taking care of the fact that I have stress hormones pulsing through my body constantly, and it affects my muscles, it affects my organs, I have to address that. So one of the best ways to address stress is through exercise. And it doesn't mean that it has to be a perfect exercise plan. It does not mean that it has to be a difficult, like overly demanding exercise plan. It just means that you need to go move your body. You need to do something. So my first step for anyone who's looking to build resilience through exercise is to go for a walk. Go for a walk. Put on a podcast, put on a book on tape, go for a walk. Yes. And the studies also show that it doesn't have to be a huge block at the same time. You can break these up into small little pieces. So wherever you can build a little bit of movement into your life, that means that you are going to the park and playing with your kids. They're already going to be at the park playing. They're already going to be doing something. Involve yourself in that. It's going to be great for your kids and great for you as well. And I have a lot of moms who are sports moms, and they need to be at the practices anyway. They're required to be there for some age groups. So they go and walk around the soccer field or go and walk around the track around the field at the park. So there's little ways.
Baseball.
Perfect. Like we can build it in that it doesn't feel like it's taking away from things that are already happening in your life. But I think that is a really good first step. Walking is just so good for us. And then when you're ready, adding on some resistance training is going to also be extremely helpful. There's so many studies that show that having more lean muscle makes you more resilient. And the adage goes, one of my coaches, Alan Cosgrove, his adage is that if I'm stronger, people are harder to kill. Stronger people are harder to kill. So that's the kind of the way he says it, but it's true. He was a stage 4 cancer survivor, and he attributes his survival to the fact that he was already fit prior to getting his diagnosis. Wow. So I think that's really important for us, whether or not you're dealing with, a terminal illness. We need to be prepared for anything. Whatever's coming around the corner, we might be PCSing a month from now, and we don't know it at this moment. We might find out tomorrow. Might find out next week that we need to be picking up and moving. Our spouse might be gone, and we need to take care of the house, and we don't know what could be coming. Here in Japan, there's a high likelihood of natural disaster. Am I prepared to be able to pack up the little bits that I need and my 3 pets and be able to carry all of that and get it all by myself? So there's practical reasons for it, and then there's these biological reasons that I need to make sure that I am prepared for anything, that I have a resilient body, a resilient mind to be able to take on whatever comes. Hope that answers your question.
100% is absolutely brilliant. If you ask me, you didn't, but excuse me. If you ask me, that's absolutely brilliant. I think it's so important to understand all of those things. With all of that said, so we know it's important, right? And you drive home some incredible points that maybe people didn't think about before that. But we hear it's important. Self-care is important. Exercise, move your body. It's important. Care for you. We know that. Great. And we're human, and we're going to find excuses, and we're going to find reasons not to do it, and we're going to lose motivation. So my question is, knowing it's important is one thing. Implementing is a whole other thing. So how do you have just like a really relatable strategy or 2 or more to get and stay motivated? And I get like motivation is driven by action. So you have to like just do the thing motivated. But, what say you?
We need something to start. Thank you for that, because I'm thinking about this a lot about, we know all these things like, oh, Grace, I know I need to get fit. I know I need to do all those things. I get it because I experience it too. Like I know I need to sleep 7 to 9 hours a night. I know I need to do that. But there's so much, you're running a business, you're trying to get your workouts in. Right now, my husband's deployed, so take care of the house. Even if I don't have kids, there's still a lot to do. Like, I know it, but I need a reason. I need more than that. I need more than just someone telling me I need to sleep 7 to 9 hours. So I'm going to take this from kind of a selfish approach, and then address your question through that, because I want people to know that fitness, you see all on social media, whatever, fitness professionals struggle with the same things that you guys do. And I have a very unique understanding of it because this was not my goal, my profession for most of my life. This is something that came to me about 10 years ago and changed my life. So it's not like, I've been fit, I've had all the perfect things. So I want people to know that there's struggles that we experience as well on this type of things. So when we're talking about motivation, there are two types of motivation. There's extrinsic, things that are coming from outside sources. Think of it like your doctor telling you you need to take your vitamins. That's an extrinsic motivator. And then there's intrinsic. There's things that are coming from my internal. So things like I need to manage my stress because I'm feeling like I'm not living my full potential and I'm not present for my family because of stress. So that would be a little bit more of an intrinsic motivator. I want to first talk about what types of motivation I would like people to stay away from. This is not just because of me. There's a lot of research behind why these motivators don't work, but I still see them from people. So I think it's really important that we don't just ignore them and just talk about, here's some good motivators. Yeah. I think it's important to also address why we should stay away from some motivation types because they're just not going to set you up for success. So one of those is social comparison. We already talked about that and why that can be a very negative thing, but I just want to make sure we mention is social comparison or comparison is just not going to set you up for success. So we need to look a little bit more within our four walls, within our box. And then the other one that is huge is guilt. Guilt is a big motivator for some people, but it has been proven time and time again to be not successful long term. It is really successful in the short term. It can get people moving, but it's not going to sustain you. So we need to, if we're going to start there, if maybe you've already started there, we need to quickly shift to some different motivators. So if you're finding yourself motivating yourself by feeling guilty, I'm guilty because I didn't go to the gym yesterday, so I need to go today. I have to go today because I didn't go yesterday. And we could talk a lot about food as well. There's a lot of guilt around food, and that fuels a lot of behaviors. Yeah. So that's just one piece. We could probably talk for an hour just on that.
We probably need to do a second one of these where we do talk more about like the health aspect through the lens of food and whatever. We can commit to that.
I think that'd be good. I think that'd be good because we talk about fitness and it's a great entry point because I think it is easier than talking about food. Just speaking from experience and professional experience, I think it's easier for people to start a fitness routine, funnily enough, than it is to address the food piece. But when we can combine those things together, they really are so powerful. So we're talking about a lot of fitness today. I'm trying to keep on topic with that. But yeah, I think it'd be great to then branch out to that other piece.
Yeah, we'll do it.
The nutrition piece. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about the best motivators. What are the best ways to get motivated? One is to find social support. Mm-hmm. Get that group around you. That's going to be your buffer from all that outside noise, the social comparison, all that stuff. Having that group of people or coach there to just get you past your thoughts of like, oh, I can't go, I'm not motivated today. When someone's there waiting for you, you are way more like, this does bring a little bit of the guilt piece in, but we are way more likely to not want to disappoint someone else than to disappoint ourselves.
It's a very different perspective on guilt though than bashing yourself in the moment.
Yeah, it is. And it will get us going and then we'll start looking at some of the other ones. Yeah. So it's like a nice buffer, a nice entry point for us. So that social group. And that's why people love group fitness. They love boot camps
Yeah.
because there's a little bit of social support. You look forward to seeing those people. They're smiling. Everyone's having a great time. We're all kind of in it together. Like we're all working really hard. We're sweating, but we're doing it together. So there is kind of like that camaraderie feel. And then I want to talk about one more before I talk about intrinsic motivation, but it's also really important to think about our health goals as not just a physical goal. So oftentimes the entry point for people is I want to lose weight. And I know that there's a whole movement on body positivity and I love it and I support it, but I also have to recognize that the majority of people when they come to me are coming to me because they have body composition goals. They want to lose weight, they want to fit into their clothes differently. That is their entry point for coming to me or seeking support. But I also think it's really important that we look at the underlying positive health outcomes that are going to come from it. When I ask my coaching clients for their wins, like what are they really proud of themselves for as they're moving along their journey, they don't tell me, I'm proud of myself because I lost weight. I'm proud of myself because I fit into these clothes. Sometimes they do, but more often than not, the things that they're really proud of or motivated by are things like I was able to carry my own luggage at the airport. I was able to carry my luggage and my kid in the carrier at the same time without help. Those are the things that they are motivated by. So I think when we can attach ourselves to something that is tangible, that is a motivator. So looking beyond just the number on the scale, things that actually have predictable outcomes. That's a big motivator. And then my last one is intrinsic motivation. It's kind of it's a tough thing to do, but it is so important and it takes time. So that's what I'm talking about at last. Intrinsic motivation is the process of being able to find enjoyment in the process. So not looking at what the outcome is going to be, it's enjoying the journey along the way. And that is tough for people at first. So that's why we have these entry points. Eventually we need to switch over into how can I find just joy or appreciation for this process of exercise instead of looking at what am I going to get out of it. And when we can pull that together and have these outcomes where I'm seeing progress and I'm getting this positive feedback with just enjoying the process, I think that's when we have a lasting fitness routine, something that's going to last them for a lifetime.
Wow. So many gems in there. It's so funny too, how much of what you're talking about I can relate to in the same exact things that I share with clients, but from the perspective of, harmonizing your life, building your business. So many people, especially like our example here, I talk a lot about building self-esteem and self-confidence. And a lot of people like to look outward for that boost. And so the way that I tend to approach it is it's great to have that positive feedback from those around you that support you for so many reasons, right? You realize who your community is and who is safe to lean into and who are going to be your cheerleaders, and you need those people. And right now, while you're learning to be your own cheerleader, those are the things that are going to carry you. So those external sources. But ultimately, what you really want to do is be able to look inside yourself. So when they're not there, or because it's temporary when it comes from outside, right?
Yes.
So on demand, we've got to be able to pull it from inside eventually. So at some point, you learn to give that back to yourself. But it's listening to you. I think just everything really is related, isn't it? And almost anything you teach about, learning about something, progressing in something, building yourself in certain ways, you can kind of, across the board relate to just about anything you're doing and striving for.
Yeah. And I'm glad you bring it up because, like we talked about, I'm a human too, and I struggle at some points. And since you brought it up, there are so many parallels between fitness and entrepreneurship, fitness and starting a business. And there are so many times where I am burnt out building a business because, maybe we had an idea in our mind of where we wanted to be in 5 years in. And if we only have that as our benchmark for success, we're missing all these things along the journey. And it has taken time, but I hear you when you're saying that, because there's so many parallels between the fitness and being able to appreciate the journey even through the suck. And a lot of times I've seen it happen. We quit before we find the success. And so many trainers, personal trainers, quit. That one of the other things that my business coaches say is, like, if you want to be the best fitness coach in the industry, you just need to wait out all the other ones who are going to quit before you. Which is sad, very sad, because there's some
we're
amazing
not wishing
coaches.
Anybody failure or to throw in the towel, so to speak, but you're not.
But it's not a straight line to success. And if you're not willing to go through the low times, go through the times where you're not making, progress, constant success, the numbers aren't perfect, you get hit with a PCS and now you need to put your business, on a little bit of a pause. Like, if you're not willing to get through that, then you aren't going to see the success that you're wanting. Like, we have to be willing to enjoy the suck a little bit. Yeah. Enjoy those processes where this is like a growing period. There's a lesson that I need to learn here. And that's the same thing that my coaching clients experience. It's the same thing. There are times where it's tough and they're not seeing the results constantly, but they have to get through that, because on the other side of that, that's when the magic happens.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think of all of the things, all of the strategies and approaches to things. It's also very important. But as you talk about that, I just hear mindset, strengthening of the mindset. I know everybody doesn't call it the same thing, right? But it's building the person, the whole person. So beyond the strategies, being able to dig in when things get tough. And maybe you see the silver lining in the suck as it's happening, and maybe you don't, but the knowledge that it's there and eventually you'll be able to see it. So it's there for you. And maybe it's just too hard to see right now, but trusting in that it's there. And as you continue to move through the process and you look back at this, you'll say, okay, there really was a lesson. There's going to be a lesson. It's just...
Yeah. And if you don't mind me kind of stringing this conversation out a little bit more on that, because this is so important.
Yeah.
Oftentimes we're not hiring a coach for mindset.
No.
We're hiring a coach for an outcome. But just like you're saying, the mindset happens through the process. And so if you just focus on the process, like the mindset stuff kind of comes in, and us as coaches, we're feeding that in a little bit here and there as you're ready for it. We're feeding in mindset pieces. One of the things I preach with my coaching clients is that when you go to the gym on a day that you didn't want to go, you are rewiring your brain to do the stuff that sucks. And when you can rewire your brain to do that, you are building a history of success. You're building a history of, I did the thing when I didn't want to do the thing. And when you can do that with fitness, you can do that in life.
Yeah. Absolutely. I love it. Okay. Well, we've covered a lot today, a lot more than we intended, but all good stuff. I don't think anything wasn't worth mentioning. I think it was all gems.
There's a lot to talk about. This is all, all important. And I know I'm coming, this is what I love to talk about, but yes. Yeah.
Well, then that's the beauty of talking with somebody about something that is not necessarily, now the importance, yes, am I active, all the things, yes, don't get me wrong, but this isn't about me. This is when you bring on somebody who it is their passion, you get a different level of energy. And so that's why I love chatting with you about this, because I enjoy moving my body. I do my regular walks and different forms of exercise and caring for my health and all of the things, but it's not my passion. So when I'm passionate about caring for the whole person, but anyways, you get the point. But when you talk about it, there's a whole other level of energy that makes me love it on a different level just listening to you. So
Good.
I want to thank you
Yeah,
for
and
that.
I think that's really important too, because we want to be experts on everything, but we just don't have the time and energy to be experts on everything. And that's why I think of having like your board of directors. Who's on your board of directors? Because everyone has their expertise, and when you bring everyone together, you're building this really amazing thing. So who's on your board of directors, the experts in your pocket to be able to pull from?
Yeah. Put Grace on your board of directors for all things health and wellness. I love it. Okay, so let's kind of like wrap it up here because I feel like at this point we could keep talking for hours. I'm sure we could. I have no doubt, absolutely no doubt that we could keep going. But
We'll
for
spare
time's,
everyone.
yeah, well, we can do a couple of these, but for time's
Mm.
sake, let's start to wrap it up here. Is there anything that we didn't talk about today that you absolutely want to cover or like final words of wisdom?
Okay, well, I'm looking down because I have notes and I wanted to make sure that because I will ramble and I want to make sure I am
I do the
giving
same.
your audience some really key points that they can take away from and start taking action on. That's really big for me is we don't make it shelf help, we make it self-help. So we need to be able to take the stuff that we learn and put it into action.
Yeah, I love
Um, so obviously I'm a coach. You're a coach. We're here to share what's in our hearts and what's passionate for us. So please know that I am saying this understanding that it's going to sound self-serving, but also because it helped me get to where I'm at, is when you are overloaded, when you have a lot on your plate, when you're busy, and when you have big goals, hiring a coach is the first thing that I would recommend doing. I hired a coach, a business coach, before I even started a business. And I did that because I believe in coaching. I've had fitness coaches, they changed my life. And I believe in the principle that in order to get where I want to go, as independent as I am, I need to learn from someone who's done it, who's been there before, who has made the mistakes, and who's going to guide me on the quickest path. So hiring a coach is an investment in your accelerated success. They're going to help you get where you want to go. And I have every confidence when it comes to fitness. I have every confidence that anyone out there could learn everything I know.
Yeah.
If they had the passion for it and the time and the energy and the money, they could learn it all.
But you said a key word though.
Invest.
Well, okay,
Oh,
that is a key word. It's not the key word I was looking for, but to accelerate, right? Get yourself to anything, any destination you want to go to on your own. Of course you can. If you really had the drive, of course you can. But doing it with a coach is going to get you there exponentially faster.
Yes, because they've already made the mistakes.
Yeah.
They've already done all the dumb stuff. And they're going to be able to tell you like, yeah, you could do it that way, Grace, but you're not going to like the outcome. Yeah. So that's a big principle that I believe in, and I've invested probably close to $100,000, not bragging, but just tell you like it's an investment.
Yeah.
What I've gotten out of it though, the knowledge that I've gotten out of it will set me up for success and a huge return on investment in the long term. So that would be like the one thing. If you're overwhelmed and busy and all that, hire a coach. It's going to be the best thing. And also, I want you to think about if you're going to take action today, what is the smallest action that you can do that is going to move you a little bit closer to your goal? Oftentimes we think I need to wait. I have to wait for everything to be perfect, the perfect time frame, the perfect scenario. Everything has my stress levels. I need to wait until everything is aligned before I can start. And the reality is that we could do something today, probably, that's going to move us closer. And if you can just do that today and then commit to doing it tomorrow and the next day, your goal is going to be inevitable. All you have to do, though, is not wait. Take a small step today. So that would be like one of the things I really want everyone to take away today is like, what's one thing that's going to move me a little bit closer? I just need to focus on doing that. I don't need to focus on doing everything and everything being perfect. Do that small thing and do it consistently. We talked about tracking your progress. This is a really powerful, it seems so benign, but it is really powerful. So we talked about my strategy of having it on a calendar and physically marking it off. I think for me and for my experience, having it in a physical place, not digital, you get more feedback. Your brain gets more feedback than just having it digitally. So if you can get away with having it on a piece of paper, calendar, journal, somewhere where you physically are tracking something, your brain gets that feedback a little bit more and solidifies it more. So make sure you're tracking it and celebrate your wins.
There's a science there as well. So I love that.
Yeah, there really is. Yeah, there is. So those are my big takeaways. I could go on forever, but I want to give everyone listening just some quick action steps. Small steps, track it. And if you really want to accelerate, if you have big goals, hire a coach. It's going to save you time, energy, money in the long term, sanity, all those things.
Yeah, so good. Okay. Now, I know you've already been super generous with us, like super, super generous with all the knowledge, but I know you also have one last gift to share with the listeners. Would you like to share that?
Sure. So if you're listening and you're in a place where you feel like you're wanting to start your fitness journey, or if you're feeling like you just want to simplify your journey, maybe you already are on your journey, your fitness journey, but you just want something that's going to take the thinking out of it. I wanted to offer all of your listeners, if they wanted to join me with my signature fitness program, which is PCS Proof Fitness, for 2 weeks to try it out and just get comfortable walking into the gym or doing it from your living room. Every single exercise has a body weight alternative, so you don't have to feel like you need the perfect equipment or need to have access to a gym. I just want to get people comfortable with the idea that you can have a coach in your pocket, someone to guide you so you can feel really confident that you're doing movements the right way and feel like you are starting your journey in an approachable way. So join me for 14 days and you have access to that program completely free, no risk.
Love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate that. Okay, so last thing, if folks want to, I know we're going to share all the links in description, show notes, all the things, but if somebody wants to connect further with you, not if, because you're awesome, they're going to. So when somebody wants to connect further with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Great question. So I think the easiest way is Instagram. You can find me at Grace B Fitness. And then I also have a podcast. If you would like to join me for a weekly episode of the podcast, we talk about a lot of the things we talked about today, plus some kind of unique things in my perspective on military life. And that is the PCS Proof podcast. So I think those are the two main ways. If you want to join me and hear me more, that would be the best way to reach me. And then my website, which is fitpathcoaching.com.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.